So you should get a notification there. We're going to begin to record this session. We're letting folks enter. I'm so proud of you all for coming in on a Monday. It's tough to remember. Sometimes we finish our Monday and then we think, wait a second, do we have something we need to do? I can't tell you how many trainings for live sessions I've missed just because of that, because I decide to take a nap or something. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and copy. Um, I say that and then okay. I'm going to copy the link to the slides and copy the link to the first thoughts. And if you could do me a huge favor, as folks start to come into the meeting, if one of you can just recopy my links, so that I don't have to worry about that anymore, that would be a huge help. All right, so what you should see here in front of you is the agenda for today. It sounds like I'm the only one who has had stomach bug issues, unless anyone else got it over the week and weekend. People, I can't see you all, but for the faces I do see, you seem alert and happy, and so that's wonderful to see. And I always go back whenever I think of Zoom, I go back to being a child and watching Romper Room. I don't know if you guys ever but it was wonderful, and I really thought that she could see me, and I would wave at the television. So I'm just very happy to see you all. Now we're going to have a really good introduction to the hybrid loop, and I think that I was reading your hybrid first thoughts, and I was reading a lot of your fears, challenges, what you would like, and a lot of it does have to do with that, still providing student-centered teaching while keeping in with the hybrid loop. And then also we're going to have our breakouts today. The breakouts, we're going to talk about 4 different things that come up, and I'm hoping that perhaps you will choose 2 breakout rooms. So you jump into one, contribute, and then pick another one and contribute there as well, if you can. And to pass the mic, just to make sure everybody has their voice in. Then I'm going to try to see if I can do a quick walk through week 2, and we'll take a look at the modules. Right now, I just want to really remind everyone that the course has been set up so that you need to open every single item within the module so that you can unlock the new modules for yourself. So let me see, there's something in chat. Thank you, Claudia. And so I'll go into the module just very briefly right now so that you can see what I mean. So right now we're here with the agenda for the second synchronous meeting. You'll notice for the first one, I added a couple of things later on. I forgot who it was. Someone, John maybe? Refresh my memory. Wanted to have the hybrid first thoughts as a page right within our module. So I've linked that there, and then the Zoom meeting as well. And so I hope to be able to do something similar later on here with our agenda. But again, in order to be able to move on to the rest, like this meeting needs to be complete. And you're all in here, so clearly you saw it. And you'll notice that the agenda for second meeting has a mark as done requirement. What that means is that you jump in there, and on your page there should be a button that lets you click on that so you can mark as done, and then that will let you unlock this next module. All right, so I know that seems, I don't know, like babysitting. We can maybe have a show of hands right now. If you feel that the whole mark is done is a little bit redundant, I can just set all of those as mark as view. Yes, John, it's a little bit too much. And you know why? Because I think that teachers of teachers become even worse. Worse dictators than we are for our own students. So I can do that. And to show good faith, I'm not sure if anybody else raised their hand or no, John did. So he's going to be the voice of reason, maybe insanity here. So what it means is that I would jump in, for example, to right here where this is marked as Mark as done. And what I'm going to do, and I have to move you about a little bit, is I'm going to mark this as view item. I'm going to update that. All right. So that means that all you have to do is probably what you did today, which is go in and take a look at the page. And what I'll do is for the rest of week 2, I'll go in and I'll make that same adjustment. Let's see. All right. Yes, there are some of them that have. So for the previous week, for week 1, if you've gone in, for example, even if it was a level up here, which is completely optional, right? You'll notice that it has a mark as done, right? So if you're stuck somehow and you're like, wait a second, I couldn't even open the agenda, that's probably the reason. So I'm going to make that adjustment here because then I can go back to the committee and let them know that we took a vote on this. That, we tried the first week with the whole mark as done, and that we took a vote, and that we decided to make these all view. So that means that you just open and you take a peek at what's in there. All right. So if we go back to our agenda, the agenda itself has the link to the copies of the slides. And so you should be able to click on that and then view it. And if I'm looking here, this seems to be the right one, which sometimes it's not. Okay, so let me go ahead and click on the slideshow here for us. And we're going to talk about the flipped classrooms. As I was reading a lot of your assignments, I realized that almost all of you have already had some sort of experience with the flipped classroom. And for some of you, it's worked a little bit better. For a couple, it's been wondering how to make the best use of time. I think for most of what I read, it's about time management and figuring out which parts go with what. So here we see in the traditional classroom, right, that we might say, write an assignment of 400 words and read the chapter. And then on the flipped part, we might say, watch the video tutorials online, and then have instead the group come in and then already have that set. So they've already had maybe exposure. It doesn't mean that the online portion of it already made them experts, right? But it does mean that at least they've had exposure to the content, and then we can bring them in. For some of you, I've shared some maybe tips on how to see that students are encouraged to maybe do that before they come to the classroom so that they're prepared. And I'm not sure, I am positive that you have wonderful ideas on how to do that. We know that sometimes in learning, the carrot works better, so some sort of reward system, or I mentioned using positive participation points. So we can't grade on attendance, even if we're requiring students to come to the classroom portion, but we can ask them to then participate in a positive manner in class and then give them a points for that, which means that we would normally set up an assignment, and the assignment, instead of it being something they upload or participate, it is set to be in class, or it says something like, what is it, in class, or non-submission. So there isn't anything they need to submit. They don't need to upload. What they do need to do is come to class and participate. All right, so let me see if I can go through. So again, we want to make sure, let me move this up, that we are careful to make sure that students are learning both actively online and actively in the classroom. Bringing my students into the classroom to give them a lecture would be well, loss of time, I guess, because what I could do is present that lecture, set it up in Canvas so they can view, rewind, and all of that. And then in class, spend only 5 minutes just trying to figure out if they were able to understand the lecture, if it broke down the concepts well enough. So let's see here. All right. So the other thing here, and I'm hoping I don't skipping, okay, is to create our hybrid schedules. And a lot of times it does help students to think about the schedule this way. It helps them, it's just a tool. students will figure out their own way anyway. But to tell them, okay, we're going to come into class on Tuesday morning. That means that you need to prepare over the weekend or on Monday, and then on Wednesday you'll come back to Canvas, for example, and then participate in these different assignments. So setting something up for them can help. There is no way that we can really enforce this unless we have very strict available dates, due dates, and then until dates, which are the close dates. But that is not really in keeping with trying to be equitable. So it's tough to enforce something when we want to be equitable with our students, but yet we still want to encourage them to follow a rhythm. And normally students will get into the rhythm of our course around week 4. So that's why it's important to design each module so that it follows that rhythm. They're very similar things that happen on Mondays, on Tuesdays, on Wednesdays, or maybe we only have things and activities for them on a Tuesday, Thursday. So that's completely up to you. I mentioned to many of you that you are completely the boss in terms of how you set up this hybrid schedule, for now. Why do I say for now? Because folks really like to give best practices and regulate. And so I do not doubt that within a year, someone's going to come up with a, you know what, if hybrid courses are going to be taught, they should be this way and that way, right? So it really helps that you are pioneers right now, and that as you're going into this frontier, that you're giving us feedback on what works in terms of your hybrid schedule and what has worked for your students, so that that way your DE committee representatives can come together and then say, you know, I've had faculty tell me that this is what works, or have faculty who said this is too restrictive and doesn't work for my students. All right, so the schedule. So other things that we think about is self-assessment, really. Why is hybrid needed in your course? Why is it that you've thought of this as a modality that would help your students and help you better help them? Um, which courses do you, I mean, if you teach many different courses, which ones should be the pioneers in hybrid learning? And which ones are fine either online, asynchronous, online synchronous with Zooms, or, you know, in the classroom? Right now, we know in the classroom is tenuous because of COVID. So that's already in a weird space. I mentioned I hardly have any students signing up for my face-to-face courses. That continues to be the case. And so at Contra Costa, I've also noticed in our department, uh, students are not signing up for the face-to-face classes. They simply don't seem to want to come Monday, Wednesday to the campus, or to the classrooms. So that's just something to pay attention to. And then, is hybrid an option for advanced student goals or completion? Are we doing this because students want to already get their degrees or transfer? And so we're doing this as an option to really help them move through and transition towards their 4 year? Or are these hybrid options better for beginners, for those students that we have who are in high school? Because we do have students from high school who take our courses. And are we thinking that that's a better transition into college work? And the other is, our physical classrooms ready for what is needed? Right now, we've been talking about hybrid and not yet high flex. High flex would mean that we would have uh, a session going live with students in the classroom as we're recording and as we have students virtually joining us. I've done trainings like that. They are a challenge. I will tell you right now that they really are a challenge, because as you have the people physically in front of you, it's very easy to forget that you still have people live on a monitor who are still wanting to participate and have that interactive experience, who can't then hear their peers who are sitting in the classroom. So they might be able to hear us. We might be mic'd, or we're just closer to the monitor. or the computer, but they won't really be able to interact. So those are things that we need to think about in terms of just the tech. Um, all right, so let me see. I think there's a question here. Yes, yes, that's possible as well. All right, so we have here, is there an optimum combination? So we do, I mean, it's one of the beautiful things about this that we really can think about how it best works for our students and how we can make that happen without killing ourselves also in terms of over designing or just not really thinking about how long it will take to to grade 50 quizzes when the quizzes also have short answer, for example. So how to maximize our time so that we're spending most of that giving giving individual feedback to our students. So we do have the fully asynchronous, which is probably the modality that gives the most flexibility because students don't need to really schedule anything. They can come into the course whenever they can, and as long as they're meeting their due dates and the close dates, they should be fine. But then we also have these online synchronous, and these, if you're going to have an online course that has scheduled Zoom meetings, those meetings need to be in the schedule of classes, or else they become optional. So a lot of you, and not me so much because I'm not that nice, but will say, I'm going to have a poll and I'm going to ask my students when they want to have their synchronous meetings or when they want to have the online office hour. Well, the only thing with that, with office hour, you can be a lot more flexible, but you can't really poll students to see when they want to have their synchronous meetings because those have to be already in the schedule of classes. So you have to go by your experience and what you feel has worked best for students. Then we have the 50-50, the hybrid. And so that's mainly what this training course is about. It's about matching that. It's about having learning activities in both modalities that are linked to each other, that one prepares the other, and then that there are outcomes that then are met at the end of, say, a week. So most of the modules can be a week long. Most of us talk about week-long modules, but if you have units that are more than 1 week, you're completely welcome and encouraged to follow that design. And so then we also have the COVID. I haven't been on campus. Last time I was on campus was, when was this? I think it was probably mid-December, which feels a long time ago because I used to go every day. I walked into my classroom. It didn't look changed at all. It looked completely the way it was before, with one door that pretty much closes unless I, put a garbage can in there or something. So that, and our windows do not open. They have, it's exactly the same. It hasn't changed at all. So these are things that maybe we need to either consult with our divisions or in our departments to see what it is that we're going to do to make sure that everyone is safe. All right. So I know that was a little bit, there we go. So quick data. Okay, so anyone there in math and statistics, this will probably make more sense to you than it does me. In essence, what we have seen, and this was for 2021, so last year, that the numbers are pretty similar, 75% online, 76% hybrid, and 71% face-to-face. Now, this was still, let me see, were we still in remote learning? So I think we may have been in remote learning. I was going to campus every day at Contra Costa. I didn't see anyone out there teaching under a tree or anything like that. So I'm not really sure what they mean by face-to-face once we were already in remote learning. Perhaps they meant that it was, I don't know, maybe they meant that it was with synchronous meetings. So face-to-face has a lot of meaning right now. Let's see, so then section enrollments and success by modality, we have 75% for non-synchronous, so that's non-synchronous is asynchronous, right? And then we have 76% for synchronous. But the main takeaway here is that students seem to, at least then, um, they seem to be enrolling or enroll in courses in both of those modalities. So that's what our takeaway is. And then now we get to do our breakout rooms. So let me see. As you were reading here, we have the student interaction online, breakout room one. Number two is going to be COVID safe on campus active learning. So maybe we're coming up with some of these things. I have read where they've already decided to have filtering systems that maybe are naked to my eye, so I didn't see them. So that's helpful. They do plan to give us protective gear, so masks and gloves if we need them. I'm not sure about sanitation that we do, but I know that while I was on campus, the custodial crew, they were coming all the time and they were spraying everything to make sure that it was sanitized. What we'll need in each room is we're going to need a slide writer, an organizer, and a presenter, and also if we can pass the mic. So let me see if I can get these groups together, the breakout rooms. And so we'll create those. And let me see here. I'm going to open all rooms. And again, these slides, you will notice later on that you can type right in them. Please let me know if you're not able to type within these slides because we set them up so that you could do that. So each of these rooms, I think we have 9. So we don't have enough people to like divvy them all up. I think maybe 2 per room. But if you feel that you've addressed the question and want to jump to another room, that would also be very helpful. Let me see what else we have here for gamification. For those of you who have a lot of tools, it'd be really great if you could share those. And then room 4 is going to be about equity and how to have that in a hybrid environment where often it seems that we're being very strict with what we're doing. All right, so let me see. What I can do is go ahead and move you to the rooms, and then if you feel that you'd like to jump to another room, that you can do that. So let me see if that will work. Were you all given a little thing to click on a room? No? Let me see. Yes? Okay, so why don't we go ahead and break? Let me see what time we have here. 6:25. Maybe we can do this for 20 minutes and then come back and share back. Does that sound all right? As I'm looking at you all. Yes? All right. And I think that you should also be able to have the option to jump to another room. But if you don't, I'm going to be in the main room. You can come back here and then I'll try to figure out how to relocate you. All right. So let me see. Yes. Anyone else? Are you all stuck in a room with me instead of in an actual room?
I got
No,
kicked off. Would you mind sharing the or sending out the link to the rooms again?
Yeah. So you got kicked out. Let me see. Where are you?
I sorry, I lost internet, so
Oh, okay. So let me see.
I think I was in group room 3.
You were in room 3.
unknown caller.
Oh, that's my kid's school.
Huh.
Let me see. Let me see if it will let me do that. Move to. Yeah, it says that it wasn't able to let you join. Let me see. I'm going to move you to
Oh, I
room.
can, yeah.
Yeah, can you still do that? Okay.
It's gone. Um,
Yes.
can I get to room 4?
Oh, yes. Let me see here. Let me find you. Okay. Move to room 4. All right.
Room 4. All right.
All
Thank you.
right. Hey, let me make sure you can all see the screen here. Let me make sure I can hear you all. All right. Okay. Let me bring everyone back. Did everyone make it back safe and sound? Yes? Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you very much. I hope that you enjoyed this time to be able to collaborate and think and brainstorm. And so I see here that we have our presenter for room A. Can you unmic yourself and just kind of give us a...
Yeah. So for our room, it was active learning, student engagement. And the main things that were discussed were putting students together and giving them a direction. So not just having them, hey, here's a breakout room discuss, but having very specific direction of where they need to go. And smaller breakout rooms seem to work better so that there, again, there's more peer-to-peer interaction. We also discussed group quizzes. So each student submits their own answer, but they work together on the project or on the quiz. And it doesn't have to be a quiz, but just an assignment where they each submit their own work, but they work together on it. And that can be accomplished either through Zoom or having them meet in person. And then the other thing that we discussed were having polls. And so getting feedback from the students, but also using that as a way to break the ice and to make it a little bit more fun in class. And then in terms of the tools for that, the Google Slides obviously is a great one, using Kahoot or many other like iClickers, and Hypothesis for writing feedback. And Hypothesis was very good because it allowed students to have time to think about their answer and then provide it, as opposed to being put on the spot to come up with an answer. And so it gave an opportunity to those that don't usually speak up to have their input.
Very good. And it is a way to ease them into that annotation, right? And I thank the English folks, the English department people, for really bringing hypothesis as a tool to the forefront. And at the district, sometimes we have these how-to sessions, especially during Flex. And so if these are tools that you're interested in, there might be a Flex training on them. And if not, reach out to your distance education coordinator or team, and we'll try to put something together. Hypothesis, I haven't used in my poli-sci classes, but I have used as a participant, and I see how it could be very, very helpful to do exactly that, to have students jump in without fearing sort of being exposed, which we don't want them to do. We want them to come forward, and to be embraced instead of feeling like they're on the outskirts, right? Being just watched. So thank you very much. That was wonderful. Did you have a good time in your session?
Yeah, it was really great to hear people's experience, stuff that I definitely did not know or think about before.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bravo. All right. So we have room two, which is COVID. I don't know about you, but I think that for me, I've been trying to ignore it somehow. It's something that I need to pay attention to. I want to pretend that I just can teach the way I used to teach, right? I can't even imagine going into the classroom with a mask and trying to go ahead and coordinate people when they can't see my mouth. The other thing is I've noticed that I must be hard of hearing and must read lips, I think, because I've noticed that although it's not a hearing thing, that if I can't see people moving their mouth, can't hear them as well as I thought that I used to be able to and understand. So who's your, let me see, presenter, John? If you can unmic yourself and share with us.
So, what does COVID friendly campus active learning center look like? And one thing I've played around with, which will work better with physiology, where they're doing things to each other and not so much anatomy, is just go outdoors. When I was an undergraduate, it was in California. We went outside on the lawn all the time. So, for physiology labs, if they're taking somebody's blood pressure or they're doing even our department laptops, we can go out on the lawn and just space out so we don't have to be in the cramped classroom. The anatomy lab's bigger, but even for some of the anatomy labs, like the bone labs, I
Mhm.
can lug out the bone boxes. And Ray's going to kill me for this, but there's no SLO for actually using the microscope. So maybe do a scavenger hunt with histology where they have to like tell me where they find the different histology slides instead of going and looking at 109 histology slides through the microscope. And yes, it was counted for me. That's why I know there's 109 slides of anatomy.
Okay. That's very
And the students get sort of sick of the microscope, but just doing things outside
Mhm.
so we're in the fresh air. And
Wonderful.
students should be able to work in groups. Carolyn said like her classroom is like really cramped up, but just space the students out in the classroom and working in groups, doing things together, having discussions outside where you don't need technology. And that's the only drawback about going outside is the San Ramon campus has 2 power plugs outside, and neither of them are in very logical or useful places.
Mm.
And our IT person will tell you all about it if you make the mistake of asking him that.
Well, these sound wonderful. I love these ideas for my poli-sci classes. I'd love to just take them out and go and talk in
Mhm,
groups and talk about, the power of protest, for example.
mhm.
So being able to get out to
Yeah,
the outdoors, I think that sounds a wonderful, wonderful idea. And scavenger hunts are fun also. So we didn't get to room through gamification, but these are games. You're already
yeah,
both with the Kahoot and then here with the scavenger hunt, thinking about ways to make these activities
yeah,
interactive and more memorable, really, if you think about it. Because if they're looking at a lot of slides through the microscopes, they might not, it might become blurred. They might
yeah,
not remember all of that. The other thing that you made me think about was, and I'm not sure about this, so we should ask someone if they're going to provide gloves, right? So
yeah,
that maybe if students are, because
yeah,
it's part of the objective and the outcome is to touch each other's
yeah. Well,
forearm or something.
I can require gloves. I know
Mhm.
our department, we buy $10,000 worth of gloves every semester for 18 lab classes and go through it in a semester. And that's just what has to be used. They're not going to buy gloves for every single use.
Activity.
But I can make that. So like we use cadaver, so I put that in my syllabus. You must bring gloves.
Yes, that sounds very important. And I mean, I wear gloves also when I'm out there, and
Mhm.
I'm not touching anybody, but I think that it's good to think about these
Yeah.
different things. And you were a team of two, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Hmm.
So, how did the smaller group work for you? Was it you can't compare it to the group team one? How
Yeah.
many were you over there? Probably six. So it is a different feel and dynamic. It feels like you were able to put everything down. So both of these teams, the bigger one and the smaller one, were still able to interact, share ideas, get new ideas, and brainstorm a little bit. So we can see the power of the small group, even if the small group is a little bit larger than the team of two. So thank you very much. Bravo. This is wonderful. And gamification. So with this, I'm going to let us have this as homework. So for gamification, you both teams already mentioned different ways where games can be incorporated. The main takeaway with this is that by providing activities that are interactive like this, we build more teamwork with our students and have them have memorable activities where, it's always nice to laugh, smile, and have fun. And if we can't always bring this into our class. I mean, I teach poli sci. So the last 4 years, they were really interesting in terms of trying to have a smile, right? But we still were trying to be able to laugh a little bit, right? And so that if we can do that for our students, I think that it will really help. So that's your homework, all of you. If you can jump in here and then just put a couple of examples that you find somewhere out there or that you think might have worked, or maybe either your children, your nephews and nieces are doing in the classroom K through 12. that will help here for our share. And then we had equity and hybrid learning. And so, let me see, Marion. So I believe you were the presenter. If you can unmic yourself and share with us the gist of what went on. I can see that you have a lot here in terms of grading rubrics. Let's see, Marion, I think you're still muted.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, there we go.
So basically we went through equity, equal access and opportunities for all students. This idea of meeting students where they are and not having a deficit model, right? We're no longer the way I was trained as a teacher to think of students whom, students are the problem, students aren't the problem. And then to in terms of definitions to add on to what we learned in the equity section, there's the 5 aspects of equity teaching, which are being intrusive, relational, community focused, culturally relevant, and race conscious. I'll just put those there. What are some of the ways we can design what are some of the ways we can design ways to incorporate in hybrid learning, informing students of their options? I think it's really important to keep telling students what support services are available, and things like being sensitive to students' economic needs, the ways that we try to make it easy for them to access materials. And then the other part is having equitable class policies in terms of lateness and other, other issues that maybe we might penalize, but now in a hybrid class that may not be as important. And then the examples are grading rubrics, and we talked about Joe Feldman's book on grading for equity, which is an excellent book, and just talks about how to try to make how we look at grading fairer from an equity focus, how we look at our class policies to make sure that we're not unintentionally disadvantaging someone. And then the idea about how we structure our assignments to make sure we're scaffolding assignments so that students who are less prepared, we're giving them the context that they need in order to be successful.
Oh, these are excellent. Thank you very much. There's a lot of thought gone in here, and I can tell you've done your homework and you're reading. One of the things that have struck me is that where we used to hear a lot about having gaps, equity gaps,
Right.
that I started to think about those gaps really being opportunities, and opportunities to be able to help students move through something. And maybe it's a difficult task, maybe it's not access to books or to equipment, which is the toughest, right? Because we would love for all of our students to have all of the equipment that they need and want. And sometimes we just don't have the funding. But providing all of these student services, and within that, a pre-contact letter that goes out to tell students, hey, just in case you need a laptop or a hotspot, these are the places where you can go ahead and sign up for one, that also helps them be prepared, just they arrive already prepared. And even if they're not, that's an opportunity for us to help them, get prepared. So thank you very much for this. I realize that we have about 4 minutes to wrap up. And so getting to the final, there are some slides here that really help you visualize what we mean by that, by online and collaboration. But these are right here in this final, and here I need to remember that we're trying to prepare for the final week because we don't want this to sneak up on you. But what you're doing already is, and you've done it, you've been doing it, and you did it today again, is to think about how you're going to frame both of those sections, so the in classroom and the online, and how you're going to communicate that to your students. So the two modules that you will, which are your final project, are going to have to be the introduction, welcome module, and then a content module. And so right now you've already been discussing how you're going to make this equitable, accessible, how a lot of the discussion earlier was on time management. And so that um, you're also encouraged, it doesn't have to be the two modules like that. If your course, if you want to be able to segment out, this is when we're meeting on campus, then you can have a module that's set up for, on campus or in classroom preparation, and so it's really up to you. But we are trying to look at sort of the orientation and how you'll explain to students how you're going to run your hybrid course, and then the content, like how is it that you're going to present activities and content online through Canvas. Right now we're using Canvas. Um, Let me see. Do you have any questions? There's just tons in here. We don't know how to measure ourselves, I guess. So we have suggestions on how to communicate with your department, and just make sure that everything that you are doing is also helping folks who are barely even thinking about this. Like I mentioned, you're pioneers in hybrid teaching, and so a lot of the takeaways that you have in your own innovations can help your colleagues back home in your department. So any questions here? Clarifications? Let me see if I can get out of that, come back to our course. I've gone through, and you'll notice that these, I've switched them to views, so that all you need to do is go in and view the page. Let me see, we do have assignments here. So we do have a discussion and we have a quiz. We do have also, which is different, is we have the 2 level ups. So one of them is to share your tech right here. And so these are editable pages. That means that you can go here into the page and hit edit, and then go ahead and contribute your tech tool that you have. And then we have another one, and we have loads of content. You probably already noticed. Here is the hybrid loop, where we're asking you to start to think about how you're going to have your objectives and meet content both in class and online. Let me see here. I'm trying to. We do have a self-reflection quiz. These are, I believe there are 10 questions here. They should be relatively painless to answer, but just a moment to think about these things. And then we have the high flex again, share and level up. And this is where you come in and then share what you have found out about high flex and how that would work on your campus, and if this would be a, just a killer in terms of your time. Because really what you're doing with high flex is that it's not just the tech, is that you're designing two courses at the same time. And it's very noble. It's in order to give all students the modality that best works for them, not just as a student, but what best works for them any given week. So I think that if we can really, really think about this, then we can start to come up with maybe some best practices, or maybe how to avoid some traps. So I'm going to stop my share here, just so I can see all of your beautiful faces, and see if you have any final questions maybe for me. You can go ahead and unmic, or concerns, or just shares as we're wrapping up. Let me see, what time do we have? 7:01. If you'd like to say goodnight, that also works well. This Thursday, I'm going to have office hours at 9, and I hope to extend them until 11, all things being equal and doctors being okay with that. So that there's a little bit more time for office hours in case you just want to pop in and brainstorm something or share an idea. All right. So again, thank you very much for coming in. I know it's tough on a Monday night. It's just wonderful to share this time with you and to see you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica.
You're welcome, Nicole. So good to see you.
Sorry I missed last Monday.
Oh, no, that's okay. No
I
worries.
totally lost. Like, I was like, wait, no. I don't know.